Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. Joining me is my guy, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Death, taxes, and me getting sick when I'm on break. So bear with me, guys, as I have a slightly different voice than usual, but I'm still my happy self. The voice just isn't there.
Yeah, you're feeling good, which is great.
Yeah.
You just, you got the nasally voice today, which is, it's fine. First day of break. Most people like to start it off on a high note. Tyler, unfortunately, does not get to choose this, but he starts it off on a sick note every single time.
No, but I get it out of the way, so that's good.
Yeah. Those of you who work in education, I think you can relate to how Tyler is feeling, especially after having, kind of the emotional drain of the end of the school year and students moving on. And then also you get sick. So I have a lot of coworkers who are currently sick. I am, not going to knock on some wood and pray that I do not get sick as Brooke and I are going to head to Mexico next week. So hopefully that does not happen. To that point, some housekeeping. Obviously, Tyler and I are going to have tonight's show, and then Thursday we'll be back, and then next week we'll have a couple episodes, and then we're going to take a bit of a hiatus this year. Last year we didn't get much of a break because of our deal with the Chargers, but this year we're taking a couple weeks off. So we'll be back somewhere in the 20s of June. So it's not going to be too long, but we're going to take a couple weeks off and recharge, refresh, do some film study, take a vacation, and do some fun self-care over those couple of weeks. So we'll be back later in June to have you guys covered for our training camp wrap up. As we do every year, we'll hit the big stories, and we'll do some general conversations about the NFL as we always do to pass some time. But that's kind of what is coming down the road as we make our way closer and closer towards the actual start of training camp.
Yeah, excited to get there. One, because it's fun. Two, that means I shouldn't be sick by then, so should be good. I'm glad you're getting to go somewhere. I will not be going anywhere. I'll be staying at home with my dog.
Yeah, so we're really excited to get down to Mexico and have some fun, eat some tacos, and be out in the sun. And we're gonna do some fun activities as well. Like I mentioned, tomorrow no show. I had my own school's graduation on Saturday. It went fantastic, and then tomorrow I have to attend a family friend's graduation. So. It is outside in the 102-degree heat. So send some good vibes my way. Pray we can get some seats in the shade as summer has hit here in the Central Valley. But today we're going to talk about the Chargers OTA experience. We're going to hit some general storylines, and then we are going to do stock up, stock down. We'll have some general reactions to minicamp in the last week of OTAs, which is this week, on our shows next week. But we wanted some time to be able to digest what is exactly happening. We didn't want to do some instant reactions about some of these topics. We wanted to see kind of how it played out. And the media has only had access to one practice per week at the OTAs, which is a bit of a change for the way that the Chargers have done practices in the past. And so we have needed to rely on the other media members to be able to give us some stuff to talk about. And now we have some stuff to talk about. So the Chargers will wrap up OTAs later this week, and then next week they will have their mandatory minicamp, where, according to Jordan Schultz, they are going to host a tryout for former Ravens Tony Jefferson, as the Chargers have continued to hit the Ravens West storyline out of the park. So we're not going to give too much reaction there unless he signs, but it is notable, obviously, that they are working out a safety, and hopefully this is not the only safety that they work out. That being said, Tyler, I think one of the biggest storylines of OTAs and of training camp has to be the offensive line, how they have been rotating those bodies, particularly on the right side, after the decision to draft Joe Alt. So according to Daniel Popper, Eric Smith, and others, the rotation has basically been Joe Alt and Trey Pipkins switching at right tackle, and as expected, Jamari Sawyer and Trey Pipkins rotating at right guard. Basically, it sounds like that's going to happen throughout until somebody separates themselves at one of the two positions. What do you make of how they have handled that particular rotation so far, Tyler?
Yeah, great. Why not? There's no surprises here. I'm not surprised by any of the rotation or what they're planning on doing. We'll talk about practice structure and stuff later, but like they're trying to hit the ground running as soon as they actually get to training camp. So I'm glad they're exploring different options and different combinations, whether it's the line or even the receiving core. Some other groups, like some other guys are getting shots at, wide receiver one. at starting. So no real surprises here, no real changes, nothing really surprising here for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that other positions. We'll hit on some of those positions, but I think it's, again, an indication of the Chargers being true to their word, and they said that they viewed Trey Pipkins was one of their 5 best starters along the offensive line, and they're going to give him a chance to earn a position, earn a role. I would be very, very shocked if Joe Alt is not also one of the starters. So really, this to me is about having the competition and then also preparing Trey to be the potential swing tackle behind Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. And for whatever, we all think of that decision, right? Like, we have seen the offensive tackle room be in complete shambles for stretches of various seasons, for an entire season, as it was in 2020. So this year, if Trey Pipkins is your backup swing tackle, you're going to enter the season with a legit all-pro left tackle, top 5 pick at right tackle, and then an above-average offensive tackle as your swing tackle. So I think it's going to be a tough challenge for Trey to balance. Like, I have to learn a new position while also like mentoring Joe Alt and like figuring out my role as a swing tackle. But I think he has the right temperament for it, and I think this specific ecosystem of coaching has the right environment to coach all of that out of him as he's kind of adjusting to this new potential role, whether it's a guard or a swing tackle.
Yeah, he's not like someone who's a 10-year veteran, multi-year starter kind of guy. Like, this is kind of the same song and dance for him. Heck, even still being able to jump in first team or even be considered like the primary backup. That wasn't really something that happened until like year 3, to be completely honest, because they were trying to find somebody else. So yeah, I never want to see Trey Pipkins on the field unless he's the starting guard, which is cool. That means he won it. But if he is, I feel so much better than anything they've had at swing tackle as their third offensive tackle in forever, because they've basically just carried like bottom tier offensive tackles as the next guy after Rashawn Slater or Trey or Balaga or whoever it is. So to have Trey Pipkins, whatever you think of him, it is so much better than what it's been for the Chargers in a long time.
Yeah, Nate Tice always talks about this on, used to be the formerly of the Athletic Football Show, now on Yahoo. He's always talked about the difference between like bottom tier performance to just average is such a significant jump up. And the Chargers have had a bottom tier swing tackle for probably the bulk of my fandom. Really it wasn't until recently when you started to trust Trey a little bit about that. But I mean, you're talking about, I don't want to, rub salt in the wound of everybody, right? But, you get Trey Pipkins as a potential swing tackle, and I think it's just going to create an environment where this offensive line can really start to, build that cohesion of depth and not just have your starters and your backups. And, you push Foster Sorrell from swing tackle to fourth tackle, potentially not making the roster, and it just does so much for your depth. So the Chargers are not at that point along the interior just yet, but, they obviously felt like they needed to tackle the offensive tackle position, no pun intended there, first, and then they'll figure out interior down the road. And it is interesting. One thing that I've found surprising, probably the most surprising in OTA so far, is the role of Brendan Hymas, the former Nebraska offensive tackle who kind of found a home at center at the end of last season. There are those who believe he was playing better than Will Clapp. I vehemently disagree with that personally. But he played better than I expected him to play. And so he's been rotating occasionally into the starting lineup as the center, while Bradley Bozeman has been taking a break or whatever the case may be. We don't really know details there yet. But Hymas has taken some first team reps. They did not draft a center. They have not signed another center yet to this point. So I think, we're talking about the most important storylines. I think we also have to talk about maybe the biggest surprise of any position group, and that could be where Brendan Hymas just solidifies center 2, and he's their guy for the season.
Yeah, what an interesting storyline from last season that I feel like almost went unnoticed. I thought as soon as they added Jordan McFadden that it was over for Hymas to even make the roster. Yeah. We talked about he wasn't going to make the roster. Why have another guard? And at the time, of course, you had Corey Linsley starting and then Will Clapp. So why would you keep a third center? But the Chargers saw something in him last year, and it seems like Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz feel like there might be something there this year. Now, the Chargers clearly haven't been shy about adding players post-draft, so we could say all this right now, and then tomorrow they sign a center, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
But they're giving him like a legit shot at being – I don't think he ends up obviously being the starter, but I think they're legitimately looking at him to see what he can do. And why not? It's cheap, free. He's a fifth-round pick, the rookie contract. So, yeah, give it a whirl. I hope he does well in this role. But, yeah, Joe Ortiz talked about how they felt like they had guys who could snap the football. I am genuinely surprised that Brendan Hymus is still the second option. So is that I don't believe it's previously in previous regimes, I would truly feel like they just neglected the position. It is possible at this point with this regime, and I do feel this way. They just believe in him. And again, previous regimes, it's just neglected this position. They're just going to roll with who they have. If he's the guy by, let's say, probably the start of training camp, I think they genuinely believe in him, which is it's a funny journey for him because you felt great about him. Brennan Thorne compared him to Joe Tooney, when he came out of college. Great, seemed like a steal, good in the preseason. Never really got a lot of action, and then just kind of meh from there. But now he's kind of got this nice little upswing in his career, and he's got a great coach for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump the gun too far, right? But like, if he is a potential long-term center, like that just knocks a need off the board for the Chargers where they could really create some value that way. So we'll see what happens. Again, they could certainly pick up a center, but there was the quote from Jim Harbaugh at the owners meetings where, hey, maybe Jordan McFadden can play center, and people kind of ran with it. He has not played center at OTA so far. Jordan McFadden has almost exclusively been the backup left guard and the bonus offensive lineman. So it seems like he's probably got that role in the bag as the sixth offensive lineman, although we'll see what happens when the right tackle situation gets sorted out, or right guard rather. But so far, the center rotation, if you will, really has been Bradley Bozeman handling the bulk of the starting snaps, which as it should be. Brendan Hymus handles the bulk of the second team snaps and then occasionally rotates in with the ones. And then the third team center is Brent Lang, who they signed to a futures contract at the end of the season. So again, there was this talk of like, oh, we have maybe some guys who could snap. It's been those three and only those three that have been snapping the football so far. Even the Appalachian State undrafted free agent who is listed as a center/guard has not been taking center snaps, at least from what we've seen from the pictures. It's only been those three. So Brandon Hymus, at least right now, kind of seems to have center 2 locked up.
Yeah, definitely locked up. And then we'll get into stock up, stock down later. But yeah, it's stock up for him so far.
Yeah. Tyler, did you have another a point that you might have, whether it's like a schematic thing or rotation thing, that has kind of stood out through OTAs so far for you?
Honestly, just the surprise, because I had no idea that the Chargers never ran 11-on-11s in OTAs under Brandon Staley. I did not realize that they never did that, and that Harbaugh just brings that in. It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not entirely sure why they didn't. I get that they don't have to go hit each other and there's no pads. I understand this is not the full go training camp, but I am surprised that never happened. And I'm curious how much even just things like that and things we could learn later on led to the defensive back room not being as in sync as they wanted to be, or understanding things. Staley always talked about communication, and they never really got that communication and synergy in the back end of the defense. So whatever it is, for as much as they're doing or as little as they're doing, I know it's not full go practice, whatever, but I'm glad they're doing 11-on-11s. And then post practice, Ben Herbert is making them do conditioning. Like, this is going to be an intense team that is mentally and physically much better than they were before.
Yeah, I mean, that last part is definitely a huge change. The 11-on-11 thing, it's not super uncommon. The Chargers were far from the only team not doing 11-on-11 stuff under Brandon Staley, because there's just this new idea of we don't do 11-on-11 stuff because it creates the risk of injury and things like that. So for the Chargers, OTAs essentially were like 7-on-7 drills, workouts, position drills, stuff like that. It's a ramping up period. Whereas this new regime, it's very clearly like we're setting the tone for training camp. Like, actually, we're going to push ourselves. We're going to work hard. we're going to condition. I am curious if the conditioning will continue into actual training camp, because I personally could not imagine like practicing, full pads in the Costa Mesa heat, which granted is not like extremely hot, but El Segundo heat, my mistake. Either way, it's not gonna be like extremely hot, but practicing full pads and then like doing sled pulls and med ball carries, like I don't know if that's gonna stick too much in training camp, but I do like the fact that it's happening now. Ben Herbert very clearly wants to put an extra emphasis on conditioning, and Denzel Perryman spoke on this previously, where he's been on other teams and they're not really doing conditioning at this time of the year. It's really just kind of learn the playbook. Let's just kind of do some walk through tempo, stuff like that. And the Chargers are actually like pushing themselves right now. And so I do think that will pay out in the long run.
Do you believe then that means the Chargers maybe take more of a, let's say, Chiefs approach in the preseason and play the starters more?
I think they will play. I don't think they'll play a lot. Like, I think it's going to be kind of like first quarter, couple of drives type deal. I can't imagine that this regime that's so, pent on, keeping players healthy and, being risk averse when it comes to injury, they'll play them a ton. Like the Chiefs will play their starters a full game, at some point during the preseason. I can't see that, but I think I'll see them play like a first quarter, maybe a first half. The Ravens, I don't think played starters a ton, but they did play previously. Again, that's Jim Harbaugh, but I think we'll see them play, just not a lot.
Cool.
Okay, one of my other ones that I wanted to hit on here is the deployment of the edge rushers. This is something that we're all very, very excited about, as the Chargers have 4 great edge rushers on this team in terms of the depth options that they have. And we're already seeing some plans from Mr. Jesse Minter. Again, haven't really seen a ton of videos of these plays, but if you go through all 650 pictures or whatever it is, like I have, you pick up on some things, such as the usage of Bud Dupree and Tuli Tuipulotu in particular, up the middle. And so you'll see some snapshots here and there where Tuli is rushing against the guard or Bud is rushing against the guard, often next to Morgan Fox and then the other edge rushers. Sometimes it's been Khalil on one side, Bud on one side, Tuli in the middle. Other times it's been Joey, Tuli, and Bud, or whatever the case may be. But they're already like working on this, potential like NASCAR package. I would be surprised if all 4 of them are on the field at the same time very much. But that's been like a curiosity of ours. Well, the Ravens didn't really have 3 edge rushers who were going to be on the field at the same time. It already seems like this is going to be a very key piece of Jesse Minter's plan to get after the passer. And again, no pads, no nothing, anything like that. But I think just like the repetition of getting these guys in different positions, different rushes, different rush packages is going to carry over into the season, as you've kind of hinted at a few times and brought up your interview with Morgan Fox. Well, you have to have like those reps and that continuity of rushing to the guy next to you. And obviously Khalil and Morgan they've played together for a couple of years now, but Bud's new to this. Tuli's never played next to Bud. Joey has been obviously in and out of the football field. So I love the fact that Jesse is already coming out and saying, hey, like, we're going to show this because you guys need to workshop it. And then we're going to figure out the best way to deploy all 4 of the edge rushers and not just have like this weird like rotation thing. Let's get a spot where all 3 of you guys can get out on the field at the same time. And then let's just create a ton of mismatches and cause some havoc out here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they end up doing here, because we try to look for, new coach from college, especially, which we're trying to find, some examples of what this team could do. And like, okay, we had Cody Alexander talk about the Ravens and we talked about Mike McDonald, etc. But there really isn't an official like blueprint necessarily for what Minter could do with, at least with this edge group. And, I think believe it was Elston, gave a pretty thoughtful answer on like, hey, we didn't have Ojabo and Hutchinson those last 2 years. So like, here's how we deployed our guys and did things a certain way. So he was very aware, and Minter was very aware of the personnel that they had. And going into and getting this job, Minter was like, yeah, would love to play with those edge rushers. So he's very aware of like what he has at his disposal here. And I'm so excited to see what they do. And I'm curious if that is why defensive tackle wasn't such a pressing need for them. Not that Tuli's going to be like a DT by any means, But if you only go with Morgan Fox and, Poona Ford, it's like, okay, what else do you have? A Boygby in round 4 who might have a, medical question mark. But if you're rotating and you have a plan for these guys, and especially now with Bud Dupree to play on the inside as well, like exciting stuff.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Otito Ogbonia has kind of been the third defensive tackle from what Daniel Popper was reporting earlier this week or last week. So the defensive tackle position is definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on. But these edge rushers, I think it just gives this defense such a high floor potential because of their ability to get after the quarterback. And, Elston pointed this out, Jesse Minter sees everything from a defensive back perspective. Like that's what he played. That's what he came up coaching. And so him having the ability to game plan his defensive back approach around 4 high-end edge rushers plus Morgan Fox, like I think it's just going to give him some real freedom that he hasn't really had to have the chance to explore. Like he's just going to be able to experiment with these guys because he's generally always had like high end corner talent. Well, you don't really have that this year, so he just gives him some more options to be able to figure out the roles of certain guys on the secondary and know that, hey, like if push comes to shove, like I trust my pass rush to get after it, and that's going to give me some solid floor to work under and figure things out in the secondary first.
Yeah, you talked about what we can do this summer for like film study. I'd be curious to just go find any comparable defense that basically, no offense to the guys, didn't have much of a secondary, but had 3 edge rushers they could rely on, and how that impacted the coverage. I don't know. That's a summer project.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely hit on something like that down the road. Okay, Tyler, any other kind of general thought here as we kind of transition to stock up, stock down?
Nah, let's jump into it.
Okay, perfect. Before we get there, I have to give a quick shout out to Josh Albrechtson. I don't know if he's still in chat, but he sent in a super sticker earlier here. Josh is one of the earliest supporters of the Guilty as Charged podcast. He's been around the entire 4 years, almost 5 years coming up, which is kind of crazy that we've been doing the podcast. So we appreciate him for sending in the super sticker. If you guys do have questions, we'll try and hit some at the end of the show. Obviously, if you do a super chat, we will definitely touch on them. And we appreciate all of you guys for tuning in live. We also appreciate our friends over at Prize Picks for supporting this episode and every episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. Prize Picks is the best and easiest way to partake in daily fantasy. You choose a pool of players and simply choose more or less on any given sport, whether you're into the WNBA right now, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, golf, esports, whatever the case may be that you're passing the time in summer, obviously Major League Baseball as well. It gives you a ton of options to get some skin in the game wherever you want to get some. Obviously, we focus mostly on football. Very excited to actually get back into the football swing of things with Prize Picks. And you guys can go to prizepicks.com/guilty to get a deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty. Our other friends over at Unified Health or Unified Healing, are very happy to support this show as well. So whether you are a world-class athlete like the players that we cover on a day-to-day basis, a podcaster, a teacher, a counselor, whatever the case may be, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. That's why we are so excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. If you haven't heard of Unified Healing's new EE system yet, you'll want to listen up because this technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. So wherever you're at, the Unified Healing System has several different locations with easy access across the globe. You can go to unifiedhealing.com/guilty to learn more and find the center nearest you. Again, that is unifiedhealing.com/guilty. The links to both of those sponsors are in our description and every description if you are interested. So please go check them out. It really does help support the show.
Unified Healing, can you send me a cough drop?
Nice. I'll Amazon Prime me one for sure.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, let's get to our stock up, stock down. And if you guys have any you want us to hit on, or if you have a suggestion, feel free and send it away here in the chat. We obviously talked about Brendan Hymus there, but briefly for a second. But Tyler, who would be your first stock up of the OTA period?
Yeah, let's go with Troy Dye. Troy Dye. Wow, I can barely say that. It's such an easy name. The linebacker whose connections with Ficken, so we know he's going to be able to play special teams. He's going to make the team, et cetera, et cetera. What I didn't expect so far and so early is him jumping in as the starting linebacker with Junior Colson out. So he was LB2, Perryman was the LB1, and he's jumped Deion Henley to be a part of that starting linebacker duo. So that's maybe even more so just a stock down for Henley thing than a stock up for Troy Dye. But he's had a good week of practice. It's on a couple of weeks of practice. Talked about Daniel Popper mentioned the interception of Easton Stick, which is a frequent occurrence sometimes in these training camps. The praise that he gets from Minter, obviously Ficken, he's a Ficken guy anyway. And then him just being LB3 right now, it's all good for him right now. Everything's good for Troy Dye so far.
Yeah, I'm curious if this happens in training camp and if somebody misses, like, how would they potentially balance this out? Because to me, like, do you trust Deion Henley to play the run more than you do Troy Dye? Do you trust Nick Niemann to play the run more than you do Troy Dye? We don't really know what Troy Dye looks like as a full-time starter. He's never been that. He's always been kind of like the LB3, LB4 special teams kind of player. So I think this is an indication that the LB2, LB3, LB4 roles are kind of up in the air. Like I do expect, obviously we talked about this earlier. I do expect Junior Colson to be the LB1. I think he is going to be the on-field player every single snap. I think he's going to be the best linebacker of the group. But I think with Denzel, Troy, and Deion, I think the rest is all up for grabs. And I think them having Troy Dye out there first is maybe an indication that this is more of a competition than Chargers fans would assume, because I think everybody in the fan base wants to see Deion get that chance over a guy like Troy Dye, who's been a veteran journeyman. But if Troy beats him out in training camp, like as Jim Harbaugh says, competitors welcome, and this is an indication of the competition being true across the board.
Yeah, usually with the Chargers signings of we've seen every year, it feels like some special teams linebacker is signed and he only plays special teams. So I think we all just kind of expected that Dye would just be the fourth guy and the guy with Neiman who plays special teams. And maybe that's the case by the end, but we rarely see them jump this early into the starting group. So here's what kind of plans they have for him.
Yeah. And Navarro Bowman, I think he's never coached in the NFL. I think everybody trusts, like, he's a player's coach and everybody trusts his knowledge of the game, but that's a tough decision to make, like, right away. I mean, it's not a first round pick, right?
Yeah.
But this is a top 100 pick that the team invested in. He's very popular on the team. He's very popular within the fan base. If Bowman stamps his flag on Troy Dye being your next linebacker in the rotation over Deion Henley, that's a tough decision to make right away as a position coach. And again, he's not the only one that's going to make that decision, right? But he's already had some kind of role in them adding Junior Colson, although I think that was probably going to happen regardless. But it's just going to be curious to see how that dynamic plays out with a first-year position coach who's never coached in the NFL. Go ahead. Do you have something else?
No, I more just putting a pin in a conversation for maybe even 5 years down the line. If they really did believe in, like, they knew off the top of their heads that was Bowman's linebacker one, if Bowman has that kind of sway in the linebacker room to even just put Dye over a former draft pick, I know it's not theirs. I don't know. The future defensive coordinator sounds like a thing that could happen in many years, but put a pin in that.
Yeah, that could be a potential rise that D'Amico Ryans also experienced. So D'Amico was a linebacker coach in Houston first, and then he went to San Francisco and became defensive coordinator, and obviously is that coach. So there's just always something about, the roles that come out in coaching, right? Like the backup quarterback is almost always like the most successful coach. Well, linebacker, I think, is right up there too. So it's just like the communication, the leadership. So it is going to be fun to see Navarro Bowman's coaching journey unfold with the Chargers and wherever else it may take him after that. My first stock up is mentioned a couple people in the chat, but it's Hayden Hurst for me. This is a guy who I don't know what to expect in terms of the season, but he's already kind of become a favorite of Justin Herbert. Like, he had 6 catches in one practice the other day. Granted, one of those was from Easton Stick, But still, man, 5 catches from Justin Herbert in a practice is not nothing. And I don't know if that particular day was just like, hey, let's work on the tight end packages and we'll see kind of how this goes. But of all of the tight ends, we've seen a couple catches from Will Dissly. We've seen a couple catches from Donald Parham, who's not been practicing. We've seen a couple catches from, Luke Benson and Stone Smart, guys like that. But Hayden Hurst has been out there. He's been He's been catching a ton of passes from Justin Herbert, and he's making like good catches. If you watch the highlights, if you watch the Greg Roman mic'd up, you see Hayden Hurst like laying out. He's running good routes. He's getting yards after the catch. He looks refreshed because I did go back and watch some Carolina Panthers film for him and for DJ Chark. It was a rough watch. It did not last more than a couple of games, but it didn't feel like either one of those players were like super locked into playing for the Carolina Panthers. And Hayden Hurst now, like it's never been a question of athleticism for him. We know what kind of athlete he is, the size profile, but it does seem like he's kind of locked in. It seems like he's rejuvenated. Again, it's very early. I don't want to put too much into, May OTA practices, but I can't say I expected Hayden Hurst to come in and walk into 6 catches in his second practice with Justin Herbert. So I think it's notable because there's a ton of tight end targets up for grabs in this offense. Billy M on Twitter shared this the other day that Gerald Everett was like 7th in the league in EPA per play in the red zone among all tight ends last season. So there's a very valuable chunk of this offense that is up for grabs. And if Hayden Hurst can obviously seize that and be able to maximize his potential in this offense, it's going to create a ton of excess value for the Chargers, for him in particular.
Yeah, there's going to be such an emphasis on the tight end usage with Greg Roman. We figured obviously with Will Dissly the blocking aspect of it, but yeah, I didn't expect 6 catches, 7 catches, or whatever ended up being how many targets he got.
Yeah,
for Hayden Hurst. And while it never really always paid off in training camp, you can very much see like Herbert does love his tight ends. It was basically Keenan Allen and whatever the tight end was.
Yeah.
Whether it was Jared Cook, whether it was Gerald Everett, he would always go to these tight ends. So, and that carries over into the season. So him getting that comfort with Hurst is pretty notable, especially when you have a lot of guys you're trying to cycle through with Palmer, with Johnston, with Davis, with McConkey, who was out for a week, Chark, etc. For Hurst to get that much of a target share is pretty notable.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and predict 600 yards and 6 touchdowns or whatever, because I do think Will Dissly will have a role. I think we can call Donald Parham a stock down because he's not been practicing, but if Parham is healthy, I still think he's their 3rd best tight end. I think his athletic profile just gives him something different, especially in the red zone. And there's trust between Herbert and him. So I think there's a world where Hayden Hurst is their leading receiver as a tight end. I think that's probably how I'd pick it, predicted to roll out anyway. But I think there is a chance where he's, 450, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And for Hayden Hurst in this offense, that's a great outcome for him.
Yeah, let's see. What was Gerald Everett's stat line last year?
It was lower than we all wanted it to be. That's for
sure. 411, a couple injuries here and there, and then 555 the previous year. So can he get more than 58 receptions for 555 yards? It's possible. You don't have Keenan. You don't have Eckler. You don't have Mike Williams. So it's possible.
I was writing this list, and it's kind of insane how many targets are gone from the Chargers offense. If you really talk about vacated targets, which is kind of a fantasy football thing, but there's nobody on the Chargers offense outside of Josh Palmer who's had any kind of production in this offense. So it's just kind of crazy. 555 and 58 catches is probably too much for Hayden Hurst, given the split of the tight ends and things like that. But I think there is a world where it's 40 catches and 350, 400 yards. I think that's pretty good for him.
350. I will say, frick.
Because you feel like 400 is not a lot, but then you're like Gerald Everett last year only had 411.
Yeah, well, Herbert collapsed.
Fair.
Give me. He will have over 450.
All right, so you're predicting
he will have more receiving yards than Quentin Johnston.
That would be so sad, but not shocking.
Or an elite season because they both had over 1,000.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We'll have to like sit down and pick like a legit like over under for each of these players, but I feel like for Hayden Hurst, if he stays healthy, again, he's had some health issues himself, but if he stays healthy, I don't see any reason why he can't hit at least 350 yards, which, this offense could be a lot.
What a bar.
I mean, it's about him. It's about the offense. It's about split. It's not. That's not meant to be.
Yeah, you only throw it 15 times a game, then yeah.
15. I'm pretty sure it'll be more than that.
17.
17. Okay, Tyler, did you have another stock up for the 2 weeks so far?
Okay, it depends how you feel about Jaw Taylor. I think that him at least being the starter as the previous regime. Starter. Yes, as the previous regime guy and not the guy they just drafted. I think that's stock up for now, or at least like stock thumbs up. We'll see how much that changes. Like, okay, how does it usually progress? Usually the veteran gets kind of the nod, and then the other guy, rookie guy, works in. But for right now, being that other guy out there with Fulton and Zont is at least, I think, stock up for now.
Yeah, I again, talking about a surprise, I did not think that Jaw Taylor would be like exclusively the main slot. So again, there have been some snaps where like Derwin will move into the slot. I think there was a couple packages where Asante and Fulton moved into the slot, and then like Cam Hart and Dean Leonard came in. But if you're talking about of the two slot corners, Jaw Taylor is the only one who's taken snaps with the first team defense. So that to me is definitely qualifies as a surprise, and we'll see what happens there. The previous regime loved Jasir Taylor, like to the point where they chose not to bring back Bryce Callahan last season. Like it was like they wanted Jaw to have his chance and be the starting slot. And then it got to the point where they had to sign Isang Bassi because they didn't trust him anymore. So it was quite a journey for Jasir Taylor last year. We'll see how that changes in 2024.
Yes. Do you have another stock up guy?
Yeah, I think we have to talk about Darius Davis here. Lad McConkey, we don't really know exactly what the deal was with him, but there was a couple practices where he was not participating in team drills, where he would like do the individual workouts and he would do the routes with Herbert, but he wasn't necessarily like, he wasn't practicing in the 11-on-11 situations. And in those situations where Lad was out, it was Darius Davis who was the slot receiver. Whereas like, I think we all kind of would have assumed if Lad goes out, Palmer would be the slot receiver because he's been kind of like that every, kind of do it all player. But it's been Darius Davis so far. He's made an impact. He's had a couple big catches from Justin Herbert, a couple explosive plays. So I think we do have to talk about him. I think it's if he can become more of a legit weapon, then great, because everybody kind of knew, I think, when Darius came on the field, he would do some kind of orbit motion. Maybe he would get the ball. Maybe he would get a screen. But it's pretty predictable when he was on the field. So if Darius can just add another dimension to his game and contribute on offense, then it only makes them more versatile. And so far, it seems like he's been able to do that in OTAs.
Yeah, why not? You don't need him to be your future X or anything spectacular, 10 catches a game, although DeAndre Carter almost did that for the Chargers a few years ago.
Crazy looking back at that.
Right. I know. I couldn't even believe his stat line, like almost 600 yards as the returner guy. Anyway, yeah, why not take advantage of what he can do? And the interesting thing is when someone brought up like the idea that Darius Davis could be on the roster bubble, given all the acquisitions at wide receiver, obviously McConkey, but then you take Johnson, you take Rice in the 7th round. And I had mentioned to Discord, like, you need to start asking different questions about this wide receiver room, because I had heard that Darius Davis is viewed by the front office and the coaches more highly than Quentin Johnston and is valued more than Quentin Johnston. Now, does that mean they think he's a better receiver? No, not necessarily. But clearly getting some first team reps and as involved as, Darius Davis was way more involved than Quentin Johnston to the start of last season. If the other guys didn't get hurt, I'm not sure that we would have seen much of Quentin Johnston. Darius Davis, they kind of had a plan for him for a couple plays a game, every game. So this regime, and obviously with Ficken's blessing as a special teams guy, this team, front office and coaching, loves Darius Davis. So I wouldn't worry about his placement, and B, keep an eye on how much he's doing at camp. And I think it's a busted coverage touchdown he got, but that is notable.
No, 100%. I mean, if the new regime feels that way coming in about Darius Davis, it definitely is a thing. And again, Ryan Ficken obviously handpicked him to be the returner. I'm sure that's carried some weight, but Joe Ortiz evaluated all of these players, right? And Jim Harbaugh saw Darius just like he saw Quentin Johnston last season or 2 seasons ago. I guess it'll be 3 seasons ago now at this point, but whatever, semantics. Anyways, they played against TCU, and he saw Quentin, he saw Darius. I don't remember Darius doing much in that game, but they had to study for him. Darius did have a better receiving season at TCU than I think he was given credit for his last season in college, but he's going to be on the team. Like, this is a guy who was an all-pro punt returner as a rookie, and the kickoff returns was a bit of a mixed bag, but he has the full trust of Ryan Ficken, and we'll see what happens on the kickoff returns this season. I do expect some improvement there. But he was a guy, whenever he touched the ball, he would always create an explosive play, it felt like. And then they just were not really able to use him in that same kind of role going forward. So letting us know in the chat that Darius had 12 yards against Michigan. He was going up against Mike Sainristil in the slot, for what it's worth, to be fair to Darius in that regard. And yeah, the quarterback situation. So yeah, like, he's going to be on the team. I think him, even if it's just running some go balls, like, I think that's going to stretch the field a little bit more. He could be kind of like their speed guy from the slot, which they don't. I mean, Ladd's fast, but Ladd does a lot of the other things too. So I'm very curious to see what Darius Davis looks like in year 2.
Yeah, should be a ton of fun. There's now a world. Now, granted, DJ Chark might not be this fast anymore, but there's a world where the Chargers can actually field 3 receivers that run a 4-3 at the same time.
At the same time. When was the last time that happened?
Let alone 2. Yeah.
It's been a hot minute. Okay, stock down. I don't think we'll have a ton of stock downs, just because it's been OTAs. We talked about briefly Dayon. We talked briefly about some other guys. I think you could say stock down for the undrafted free agent offensive lineman as well. Obviously, the Chargers went out and signed Alex Leatherwood. They cut one of the undrafted free agents to be able to go and sign him. So I think that's an indication. Obviously, it was going to be a long shot for these guys, just because you already had McFadden and Hymas kind of penciled in. But now with Leatherwood, I think it just makes it kind of that much more of a difficult journey for these guys to be able to make the team.
Yeah, I agree. Now it just comes down to how many they carry. So, like, Leatherwood, barring something awful or character, I don't know, he's making the team, I think. He just got experience. Now, just do they carry 9? Do they carry 10 offensive linemen? They could just as easily carry 10, and one of these UDFAs makes it. It's just less likely now.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, Daniel Popper said that the second team right guard has been Carson Barnhart almost exclusively. It's not been the other guys have not had a chance to get with the second team right guard. So maybe that becomes Alex Leatherwood's role. And we'll kind of see what happens. To clarify, Jamari has played second team right guard from time to time, but when Jamari is in the starting lineup, it's been Carson Barnhart as the right guard.
Fine.
So not Willis Patrick, although Willis Patrick is an absolute unit. If you've seen the pictures,
get him in the preseason. Let's get some pads on.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but it is. If you roll out like your backup interior offensive trio as Jordan McFadden, Brendan Hymas, and Carson Barnhart, that's a very small interior offensive line unit compared to the.
Oh, that's starter. True. Yeah, that's true.
The starters are going to have Bradley Bozeman and either Jamari or Trey.
Yeah, that's a difference.
The big difference. Zion obviously is not, super tall, but he's got obviously the build of a freaking Greek god. But the backup trio is not quite the same as the starting trio.
It'll just be like Joe Alt, like head off the screen, and then just everyone else just lined up.
Yeah. So again, not too many stock downs. Also worth mentioning, I guess, that Ben Mason, we talked about Donald Palmer previously, but Ben Mason has also been injured. We don't know what, again, don't really know any specific details there, but no Ben Mason so far. Not much of Donald Parham. So Luke Benson, the undrafted free agent from Georgia Tech, has been getting some opportunities that I think we'll see if he's able to take advantage of those enough where he could kind of jump out to an early lead for that last tight end / fullback spot.
Yeah, good. It's a bummer that it's coming at the expense of other players right now, but it's tough. Donald Parham, it's tough to have that injury history and the concussion history and then not be out there. It's the same story every year, unfortunately, at some point in camp. And then, oh my God, who is it? Who's the other tight end? Oh, Ben Mason, excuse me.
Yeah.
You want to get out there when you only have one NFL snap. You really want to try to get out there and show something. Yeah. So if this high RAS guy in Benson can get out there and show off, hey, everyone's giving me a comp for what my voice sounds like right now.
The Dos Equis guy. The most interesting man in the world.
I don't know. Like I haven't seen the commercial in forever.
Yeah. All right, Tyler, any other thoughts there? We'll run through some quick things here, but any final thoughts on stock up or stock down?
No, I think that's mostly it. Well, it'll be more dramatic shifts in the preseason.
Yeah, 100%. Once these guys get pads on, we'll obviously know much more about that. Yo Trash Boy wants to know if there's been anything about Tarheeb Still or Akeem Dent. With Still, really, it's just been that he's not been getting first team reps, but we haven't heard necessarily much about either of these two defensive backs in terms of positive plays. Again, the media exposure is pretty limited this year compared to years past. So they could be doing great and we would have no idea. But from what we've heard, those ones are the guys who have not been making a ton of impact out there.
Yeah. And with Akeem Dent, Popper mentioned that AJ Finley and JT Woods were the backup like 3 and 4. So I don't even know how much they've even scratched the lineup.
Yeah. Have not heard much about that yet. Any updates on Colson since we saw him working on the sideline? Not really. Again, we'll probably get an update tomorrow, I would assume. But it's not like Jim Harbaugh's out there giving every single press conference and, Junior's not done a press conference. It's OTAs. I wouldn't be too concerned, obviously, at this point in time. I think this is just kind of OTAs. Be careful and see where he's at in a few weeks.
Oh, yeah. Stock down. Darren Waller's music career.
He released another track today. I don't know if you saw that.
Did he? Oh, wow.
It wasn't like a full-on. It wasn't a full-on music video, but there's been like rumors that he's gonna retire, and so he was on like some balcony or whatever and did a freestyle or a rap or I don't know like what he had like a notebook in it and he was reading it and he was trying to say, I guess, that he's not retiring or people can't make him do things that he doesn't want to do, or I don't know. It's been weird. Music video is one of the saddest things I've ever watched in my life.
For him, I'm sure it helps to have distractions given his history. So I hope if he's retiring, that this is a great distraction for him. It keeps him occupied.
Yeah. Lucas says stock down Sawyer. What do you make of that?
Too early. So I would say stock about even.
Yeah, I would say wash right now between him and Jamar and Trey Pipkins. I think we're not going to know who wins that position battle until they get pads on. And, right now in OTAs, there's not much you can really take away from offensive line play outside of like the rotation stuff. Some other stuff here.
You guys can throw in a comment or a question, or I can just do an impression.
So somebody else call you Peter Griffin. I don't know.
I can't do a Peter Griffin impression right now.
Braxton says he thinks that QJ might be wide receiver 4. He thinks Palmer, McConkey, Chark, and then QJ.
Yeah. If Chark is at all healthy and ready to go, Quentin Johnston might be a wide receiver 4.
Yeah, man. He's gonna have to fight, and he's certainly gonna have to earn a role that he, the consistency aspect has got to improve. Yo Trash Boy again wants to know, do you guys project either Rice or Cornelius to make the roster?
I think both have to. If these guys, Joe Ortiz came out and said that they had a second or third round grade on these guys, as long as they're healthy, like that, to me sounds like someone that should make the roster. I think I had said that Cornelius Johnson had a better shot given special teams, but Rice has actually played more special teams in college, technically, at least the last couple of years. So I think Rice has the leg up there, but I think both could just end up making it.
This team carrying 7 wide receivers would be a real surprise, but I do expect one of them to make the roster. I think they've got to be able to keep one of them and continue to work with them, groom them for next year in a place where you're probably not bringing DJ Chark back. Josh Palmer is a free agent, etc. So I do expect one of them to make the roster. Both of them, I don't know, man. I'd be pretty surprised if they kept 7. So maybe somebody else gets cut. Jorge says the guy that narrates Men's Warehouse, you're going to like the way you look commercials for your voice.
I got to remember that one. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it. I don't know what his.
That sounded just like him.
Is that what it is? I have no idea.
It was. Braxton says you're in good hands. All-state voice.
What hold on, let me get the actual like All-State, like it's All-State something stand. I know you're in good hands.
Well, now they do like the mayhem guy.
Oh yeah, that too. Are you in good hands? I don't know. I don't know what the actual thing is.
The guy was also in 24. I forget his name.
Yeah, he was the president, right?
Yeah. He was the president in 24.
Look at that.
Fantastic show, by the way.
Safe family. But I can't enunciate.
Like
one mile at a time.
There you go. Do a Morgan Freeman impression.
I don't know. What's a Morgan Freeman quote?
Hey man, Morgan Freeman's voice is like goated. Like that guy is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna do that one. Do an Asian accent. Get out of here. Not right now.
Demetrius asking about who do we think wins the CB2 role. I think it's Fulton. We talked a bit about that last time, but I do kind of expect it to be Asante and Fulton being the starter, the two starting duo.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait, somebody died?
I think he might mean
Morgan Freeman?
No, someone's voice.
Oh, is he asking about?
Did the All-State guy?
The All-State guy die? Oh, he was also in Major League. He was.
Oh, wow.
Did you ever watch that movie?
Yeah, but I don't remember that.
He was like the Dominican guy who was like all into voodoo and stuff like that.
Okay.
I forget his name.
I'll have to rewatch it. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, James Earl Jones. That's the guy who does Mufasa and Vader.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom. The antelope eat the grass. No, I am your father. I can't even have I don't have enough breath to even do that.
That one's like you still gotta go down a couple octaves there.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what you guys come for to the show, right? You know, we're doing voice impressions while Tyler is sick.
Whatever. Oh man.
Oh, Tara wants to see if you can do Thor. What's up, Tara? By the way, appreciate it tuning in.
I don't even know what's a good. I need a horse. I don't know. I'll work on that one, guys.
Sounds good. All right, I think that's Jorge says the impressions and the food reviews. That's why you're all here. Now the football talk.
That's what we're here for.
Yep. All right, that feels like a good place to stop tonight's show. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll be back on Thursday. Topic TBD. We'll keep you guys posted, but should be a fun one either way. And then we'll have a couple of shows next week before we are on a break. So Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
Yeah, I'll do a Mufasa impression really quick. Ah!
All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. As always, bolt up.
I had to hit the end stream button. Hold on.